Welcome to Tech Talk, a podcast dedicated toward building community for technology managers that serve the AV and IT industry. My name is Steve Greenblatt. With me today is my co-host Mark Lavecchia. How are you, Mark?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you today?
Great. Happy 2015, and we're up to our fifth episode, believe it or not.
Oh, it's amazing.
We have a special guest today. His name is Jonathan Blackwood. He's an editor at Corporate TechDecisions. How are you, Jonathan? Thanks for joining us.
I'm doing good. Thank you guys for having me.
Wonderful. Appreciate it. Jonathan's actually a friend of Tech Talk and has been with us since the beginning. He attended our inaugural event at InfoComm 2014, and I wanted him to share a little bit about his background and how Tech Talk fits in with what he does at Corporate Tech Decisions. So if you want to just give us a brief history and tell us a little bit about how your role and how technology managers are engaged with you.
Sure. So I work for Publishing, and one of the publications that we have is Commercial Integrator. And so a couple of years ago, Commercial Integrator has done real well. It's written towards the integration field, obviously. So a couple of years ago, they decided to open up a new publication based solely towards the technology decision maker within corporations. And so I've been the site editor for Corporate Tech Decisions for about 8 months now. I was at InfoComm for the Tech Talk event, and yeah, I've been writing about technology for the last 8 months. I've been covering everything in the corporate realm from the tech decision maker side, and our goal is kind of to give the tech decision maker the information that they need from the manufacturer side, from the integrator side, everything that they need to know that kind of they might not be able to find out from all these different publications, and bring it into one space so that they can better do their job.
That's great, and I think that ties really well into what we're looking for, and I think that's probably why we've seen a lot of this synergy. But I think we both would agree that technology managers really are playing a more prominent role in the industry, and it's so nice to see that there's a publication or a set of publications dedicated toward them, and how their voice can be better heard. And one of the things that we're going to talk about today is an article that you wrote talking about how business in the AV industry is changing and has changed for some time, and a lot of it has to do with that expanded role, the increased knowledge, and the influence that technology managers have. When I read it, it brought back some of the conversations that Mark and I have had in the past about how technology managers are tasked with more, they're taking on more themselves, and they're now known as a much more educated client. And I think it's important for everybody to realize that. Mark, maybe you can shed some light on that. We talked with an integrator a couple episodes ago, and he talked about the importance of the relationship that he had with technology managers and making sure that his projects were completed effectively, and how that relationship that he developed was really the key to the success.
Well, that's exactly right. What we found in that conversation, we talked with a gentleman by the name of Eric Wilson, with an integrator out here on the West Coast called Western Audio Video. They've been out here for years. I go back with Eric to my very first days 25 years ago in the business. And he works pretty extensively with technology managers, and we brought him on to talk about what his experiences have been that has made him successful. And it's interesting to me because it's a learning process for the integrators. And so I want to qualify that by saying something that, Jonathan, I don't know that we've ever discussed with you. Steve and I talk about it a lot, which is East Coast and West Coast. It's literally a coastal thing as far as I can tell. On the West Coast, the integrators have a tendency to work very closely with the technology managers. On the East Coast, Steve sees more of a trend of the technology managers working more directly, doing their own thing. They'll hire Steve, for example, as opposed to myself. Typically, for myself, I get hired by an integrator to handle their controls programming. So they have more of a direct handle on things on the East Coast than we see on the West Coast. But I watch the West Coast, West Mountain states. I watch them work with technology managers more and more, and it's becoming some are really good at it and some are really not. And so I'm curious if you could tell us from your experience what you've seen is why do you think some are good at this and some are not? I think some of the answers are obvious, but from what you've seen, some are good, some are not so good. What are you seeing from that relationship that strikes you most?
Sure, and I'm not sure how much of an East Coast versus West Coast thing there is. I'm sure there's a lot of analytics that could go into figuring that out, but I think that the big difference is simply that there's more information available to anyone nowadays. So I liken it to someone working on their car. You can go to a mechanic and say, fix it, and the mechanic can tell you any amount of things. And if you have no knowledge, you're basically beholden to him telling you what's actually wrong with your car. Then there's someone kind of in the middle who has an idea of how things work, and when they speak with the mechanic, they can get an idea of, okay, well, that's probably something I need to do versus that's probably something I can do for a little bit cheaper, or that's something I might not want to do right now and I can get done down the road. And then there's something even lower than that, or even more involved than that, where people can just go in and fix their own cars. And I think the integrator is somewhere along those lines. And now that there's so much information readily available between just online articles, between podcasts such as yours, and online courses that you can take for free, and whether it's not certification or anything like that, they can find this information and they can learn how to build out these systems, and with time and with practice, sometimes it's not needed. Now obviously things can get so complicated where you do need to bring someone in, but I think just the amount of information that's available to the integrator is larger than it has ever been before, and I think a lot of people are utilizing it because obviously it makes them more valuable in their position.
And the key for an integrator, and I tell them this, and some of them tell me this, you need to take your ego and you need to stick it over to the side. We've lived in a business where the integrator was the knowledgeable one, like you said. You bring up a great example with the car. I'm the guy, I don't know anything about cars. Okay, I turn on the key, it starts. When it doesn't, I call Ray. Ray says, don't worry, I'll take care of it. And that comes from a long relationship that I've had with Ray. He's a great guy. I trust him. I know he's not going to screw around with my car. He's not going to try to double dip me on any numbers. I know that because of the relationship I have with him, we are always going to be successful together. Now, that's because I admit my stupidity to him. I can go to him and go, look, I'm a dumbass. I don't know any of this stuff. You need to take care of me, and if you do, I'll bring you my stuff. There are integrators who are very good at what they do, and so when a technology manager comes to them and they go, hey, I'm looking at doing this room, they have to be very careful in terms of how they approach that technology manager, because the knowledge base that they possess right now is so great that they could stand to trip over their own ego and ruin that relationship, which should be a relationship. It's got to be a long-term thing, and I think that's something you're probably seeing as well. This isn't just, I need a display, I need to put an LCD up here. This is, I need a partner long-term.
Absolutely, and I think that, before you found Ray, and I'm the same way. I don't know anything about cars. I have my own Ray that helps me out, but I went through a few Tom, Dicks.
You're both named Ray? That's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. But I went through several Tom, Dicks, and Harrys that didn't help me out in the first place, and the technology decision maker doesn't have the ability to make that mistake, where for you and I it might cost a couple extra grand. For them it might cost them their job, and so they need to be informed. They need to be able to have at least enough communication where they can say, this guy's telling me the truth, and versus this guy is trying to jack up the prices so that he can get as much out of me as possible. And I think that has a lot to do with it.
And if you extend that metaphor a little bit more, you bring in what's strengthened the technology managers, which is, of course, the internet, the ability for them to now have access to training, to documents, to go into Infocom. They have the budgets now to go to these shows. All of that information brings them into a circle of evaluating data. And what I mean by that is, before, how I found Ray was through Yelp. And so a lot of people went to Tom, Dick, Harry, and Tom, Dick, and Harry screwed them. And so I went on Yelp and I saw, oh man, Tom, he's not good. Dick's not so great either. Harry, he's a problem. Look at Ray. let me go check out Ray. And while something like Yelp gets a little polluted, it's still a pretty good barometer. And what we see in our business now are the technology managers. They're sharing the data. I use this guy. I use that guy. I like this product. I like that product. That becomes ridiculously powerful. And that's why, going back, if you're not careful, if you trip over your ego, you're going to be a Tom, Dick, or Harry, and you're going to be standing there with your finger up your nose wondering what's next.
Absolutely, and I think that's why it's important for organizations such as TechTalk and, if I may, publications such as mine to exist so that they can get the information that they need and that they're not making the mistakes. And I think that's the realm that we're kind of moving into now.
So when you talk to integrators out there, are you finding the majority of them are getting it? Do you think that they are learning to transform, or do you think that there's still kind of an in-between phase, resisting a little bit? Because I think what we see is that we even see from a programming standpoint, I mean, Mark and I, that's where our backgrounds are in terms of our companies, that technology managers are getting more involved in programming, and we have two choices. We could either resist it and fight back, or we could say, they're our customer, and they're going to hire us for the things that they can't do, and even though we may lose some of the things that are easier or more in their wheelhouse, we have to understand that and specialize in some of the more advanced or bring more value to the table.
Yeah, I think that integrators absolutely are embracing this. I think that integrators are a creative bunch from everything that I've heard and everything that I've seen. And to a certain extent, it used to be, go and do this for me, and they'd come up with a solution where across the board, I think from integrators, I have heard that when they are partners with the technology decision maker from the beginning, and they really sit down and have a dialogue about what exactly the technology decision maker is looking for, they come up with new creative solutions that they never would have had they not had that conversation in the first place. They're already bogged down by what they know or what they believe can and cannot be done, where a technology decision maker might say, well, this is really what we need, and that gives the integrator the ability to kind of think outside the box and figure out a way to get it done so that their business model can continue, so that they can continue to get a better reputation and get the builds done that they need to. And at the end of the build, they find that they had built something that they didn't even realize they were capable of creating. And I think that so I think the ones that do embrace it are finding great value in embracing it and in partnering with them. And the ones that have embraced it that I've spoken with across the board have let me know that the first thing that you need now is a partnership and a dialogue between the technology decision maker and the integrator.
Yeah, it's funny because one of the things we discussed with Eric, and I brought up in the blog post that I did about Santa, is there's this thing that you've got to keep in mind about going down this road. The margins, the reality is we're in this to make money. Okay, we're not nonprofit, so there has to be money in this. And in order for there to be, the money used to be within the margins of the hardware because nobody really knew what the hardware cost. Now everybody knows what the hardware costs, so you cannot mark that up the way that you did before. So now you have to do two things. Number one, you have to have service, got to take care of the customer, and your install time, your programming time, things along those lines. But number two, you've got to, and if you really want to build your margins, you've got to be able to build that relationship, which is a different way of thinking, I think, for integrators. Integrators have always been good at building relationships with companies. Yeah. I'm going to work for this company. I'm going to provide them their boardrooms. That's different. They now have to work with specific people. We're as smart as they are in many cases in terms of the technology, but have an edge because they are able to give the integrator, like you were just saying, more knowledge that they didn't even have before in terms of the best way to give them the product that makes the most sense. And what I was mentioning in my column was, it was an old thing when I waited on tables. Sometimes you get stiffed on a table and you wouldn't get any tip. And what we always say to each other is, what you lose on the merry-go-round, you make up on the carousel. And so you've got to be able to realize you're going to lose a little bit here in the beginning, but if you do it right and you take your time, you put a quality product and help your customer get where they need to be, now you've got a relationship. And long-term, that's where the margins are, is the long-term philosophy for that, not the I need a projector, can you hang it in my room thing.
Absolutely, and I think that those customized solutions, you'll see that some of that price made up in labor costs and time management and things like that. That when you're not marking up the manufacturing, but you are catering a specific system, and you're doing hours of programming and you're doing hours of blueprints and figuring out exactly how this is all going to work together. You'll make up some of that cost. You'll create a system that is perfect for the customer, and like you said, you'll build that relationship so that the next time around they know I can go to so and so because they'll get done what I need them to do. Whatever business practice I need, they are going to make sure that that is what I get. And so, just like you said, in the long term, it helps out, and in the short term, I don't even think that. I think there's other things that you will end up doing that will help mark up the price a little bit so that you're not even losing as much when you do take more time to create a system.
So let me flip the conversation a little bit, and I think that we both agree that although this is disruptive, the outcome looks like it would benefit all parties involved. What are the shortcomings? What are the things that we need to be concerned with, and how might technology managers need to protect themselves, or even integrators in this new type of relationship? Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
I would say just you don't want a yes man. As much as I did say that you should be creating a system that works for that company, you don't want someone who's just going to tell you, we'll get it done, we'll get it done, we'll get it done, and then 3 months down the road when they've been billing you for all of these hours, they tell you, you know what, it's just not going to be possible. So the shortcomings are that you may fall into that trap of they just yes you to death, and at the end of the day they can't deliver on everything that they promise. So there's definitely there's a fine line to walk between telling them what you need and understanding what it actually is possible. So I'd say the downfall is just making sure that you are listening to the integrators' concerns on top of what you need done, because otherwise you may just be paying them for hours that lead to nothing.
Something else, Steve, we've talked about in the past that I think is extremely important, and we need to promote this as much as possible, which is when you begin that relationship as an integrator, you begin a relationship where you're starting to do some work for a technology manager. It's very important that the people who begin that relationship and start discussing what the milestones are, what the expectations are, whoever starts that is either part of the process all the way through, or is accompanied by somebody who is going to be a part of the process all the way through. And the reason that's important is I've seen many times where salesperson, and I'm a sales guy, I'm talking about myself, we go in, we say, tell me what you need, Mr. Customer. Well, I need A, B, C, and a D, E, F, and a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And they go, great. And then that person goes back to engineering and they go, well, what does the customer need? Well, he needs, stuff. And they go, oh, well, stuff. You need stuff. Well, let me go ahead and design stuff. And so they design stuff, and then they start installing stuff, and the end user is going, well, this isn't what I needed. Where did we miss this? And the reason they missed it is the translation from the beginning of the process to the end. There always needs to be somebody who is there throughout the whole process so that they identify the needs. And they keep identifying them throughout the process to make sure that those needs are being met and not handing it off because they have to go make another call somewhere. Maybe the salesperson does have to go make another call somewhere. If that's the case, be accompanied by somebody, like when we talk with Eric. Eric goes with a salesperson. Salesperson gets in the door, they begin the conversations, Eric takes it from that point forward. And then in the end, the customer gets what the customer asked for in the very beginning. A lot of people don't do that. And it's a trap that they fall into very quickly.
Sure, I think that's a great point. And I'll add a little bit to that as well. Is that we have a common saying that you don't always give the customer what he asks for, because sometimes the value that we provide are avoiding the pitfalls and our past experiences and it seems like you say that the customer is always right, but our job is to make sure and assume the responsibility that what they're getting, they're going to be happy with, and even though they've asked for something, they may not end up being happy with it, if and we have to have that foresight. So I think that's a really good point, and that's where I think integrators and consultants and programmers can provide value, and I think that there needs to be some collaboration and education from those components of the industry.
Yeah. I think that's a great point. I think that's where it comes into the partnership and the team aspect. Where at one point it was, I'm the integrator, I have the knowledge, you're the tech decision maker, you pay me. Then the other way to look at it is, I'm the tech decision maker, I pay you. You're the integrator, you do what I need you to get done, and you find that middle ground where it is, we're working together on this to get the best solution done for both of our purposes.
Yeah, one of the things we preach a lot internally here is because we'll deal with technology managers in some level as well as with field engineers that are commissioning the systems that we program. And there was always that inevitable, there's something not right. What you're trying to do isn't the best idea right now. And there's two ways to approach that. The first way is, you know what, you're wrong, you're screwing this up, you don't want to do that. It's been my experience, does not work very well. But what we try to do is we try to, through our own experience, help walk somebody through what it is that they are thinking so that they can come to that decision on their own and be able to say, you know what, yeah, I hear what you're saying, maybe this isn't such a good idea. Because we, in other words, we don't try to tell them we're wrong. We try to help them to understand where they're maybe going down a wrong path. And that goes, Jonathan, to what you're talking about. Where are you? Are you, I'm the boss and you're going to do what I say? I'm the integrator, I'm smarter than you? Stephen Covey didn't have a whole lot of things that I was happy with, but one thing he did say was seek first to understand, and then to be understood. And that's a key component to this relationship that's going on out there. Listen, take it in, understand what your customer wants first, even if it's completely out of what you thought they wanted, and then begin working towards that with them in a collaborative effort. So,
I think that's very well put, and I would agree with that wholeheartedly. Yeah, I think in our conversation both today and in the past, we've talked about the importance of having resources and education and so forth. Mark and I definitely see things from a certain perspective of the industry. Jonathan, what do you see are the places that technology managers can go to for information? How do you see, I don't know if you see much interaction with manufacturers directly. I know we talked a little bit about websites and so forth, but how do you think that they should go about getting their information and getting educated?
Sure. Well, I mean, the first place that I would go is to Corporate TechDecisions, or one of our other verticals. We have higher ed, K through 12, and worship sites, and each one of those verticals kind of carries their own specific needs. For example, K through 12, you need to find 3 quotes with most, and that's just a government rule. So things like that, but. Other than that, like you said, manufacturers, a lot of them have white papers that if you dig deep enough into their website, you'll find, and take it with a grain of salt, because they're always going to be shadowing towards their own product, but there's a lot of great information in there too. So when you find a planar white paper on the difference between short throw and long throw projector, something like that, you are going to get great information, and you're going to learn things about what you may or may not need. Other than that, at this point, there's not a ton of technology manager specific sites, so another great reason that TechTalk is coming along. But there's a lot of integrator websites. NSCA is one where all the integrators are a part of, and they have blogs and they have podcasts, and not everyone is going to be relevant to the technology decision maker, but a lot of them do come kind of in that middle ground of just what are new technologies that are emerging and how can we work with them. So it may be a little technical at times, but like I said, if you have the time and if you put in the work, you can find the information you need. It's not going to be all in one place. Look for manufacturers, websites, look at integrators, organizations, and other than that, just a Google search and look for reputable sources. And that just comes with, understanding how to use the internet. I can't teach you how to do that.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. And now, do you think that integrators and other parties in the industry can benefit from the information from corporate tech and the sister publications?
Yeah, without a doubt. A lot of what we do is just talking about technology, because a lot of what technology decision makers need is just to know some of the basic things that integrators take for granted. Like we recently in Corporate TechDecisions, we did a white paper about simply how a video distribution network works between encoders, decoders, displays, and where the content comes from. And we go out and we get experts that know what they're talking about, and we either speak with them or we have them write for us. So I'm no expert, but I am a conduit between the expert and anyone that needs the information. So I would think anyone who is involved in any sort of AV install, IT, security, things like that, can come and get very valuable information from any of our verticals.
Sure, I would agree, and I subscribe and read them. Both the newsletters and the white papers, and I think it has a lot of relevance to all parties in the industry, and it's kind of nice to see things that are geared toward our customer so that we can get to understand them better. So I think you guys have been doing a great job with it.
Appreciate it.
So I think we've covered a lot today, and I wanted to just talk about a few things that TechTalk is doing, and then we'll look to wrap up. But like Jonathan said, TechTalk is geared toward bringing technology managers together and building resources and content. And our website was released a couple months ago, and we appreciate Jonathan covering it for us. We've begun populating it. We'll be looking for guest contributors to it. We're looking for this to be a hub for information and gathering of technology managers in the community. And as I mentioned before, we have a private LinkedIn group that we're looking to offer as a free service to technology managers to give them a place that they can collaborate, share experiences and knowledge and so forth. And what we hope to do is Mark and I, from an outsider's perspective, is identify where the needs are and look to fill those with solutions and use what we're seeing in terms of discussions and bring them out to the community at large. Perhaps it's stuff that Jonathan can be covering with Corporate TechDecisions. Perhaps it's stuff where we need to bring in a manufacturer to talk about something specific or a subject matter expert. But the direction that we're headed is to fill the void that we've identified, and we look to continue to grow this community. One of the things also just coming up that as an announcement, there's a Infocom Connection show in San Jose in March. I think that for those who are local and can make it out there, that's going to be a great opportunity, and we're going to be looking to get representative from Infocom on a future podcast to talk a little bit more about it. So, Mark, anything takeaway-wise that we missed today? Anything that you want to finish up with from your perspective?
Well, first of all, this business has always been a relationship business, always, ever since I've been in it. And when I first started in this thing with 3-gun projectors, I was told this is a relationship business. You're going to wake up and you're always going to see pretty much the same people all the time. If you treat them well and you're there with them, then they will be with you throughout. Jonathan, when nobody was paying attention to us, you were right there, man. And we appreciate your being with us as we grow this up. And I want you to know we're going to be with you as well. I think there is a good synergy here, and I think the people that watch this podcast are going to see us working together to continue to elevate the technology managers' information, places to gather, information to get, and just relationships to build. And so, Jonathan, it means a lot to us. Genuinely means a lot to us that you were there at the very, very beginning and went, hey, that looks like a good idea. And we're glad you're here today, and we really appreciate it.
Absolutely, no problem. I mean, it's 100% reciprocated, the feeling. I think I love what you guys are doing. I think it could be very valuable as a partnership between both of us, for both of us. And just kind of going back to what you started with from the integrator as well, tech decision makers, treat the integrator well. It should be a partnership going both ways, and that will make them work harder for you. It'll make them work better for you, and it'll make them come up with better solutions for you. So I'm glad to be in your good graces at TechTalk, and I hope that our little partnership can continue long into as we both continue to grow.
Hey, what city are you in, Jonathan? I should know that, but I don't.
Sure, we're just outside of Boston. We're about 20 minutes out in Framingham, Massachusetts. And I know, and I'm actually a Boston man myself, born and bred in Watertown, Mass. So I'm rooted here for good.
You're a Patriots fan, aren't you?
The good Lord blessed me with being a Patriots fan. That is correct. And I look forward to another championship in a few weeks.
Oh, God. Take back everything.
Okay. Worth it.
And we won't even get into baseball, so forget about that.
Well, I hope you have a good
football season for now.
Jonathan, how can people reach you outside of here?
Sure. You can find me at Corporate TD on Twitter. We have a Facebook group. We have a LinkedIn group. You can come to the website, sign up for newsletters, become a member. You'll have access to all of our deep dives, all of our white papers, everything like that. So plenty of ways to get in touch, but corporatetechdecisions.com, higheredtechdecisions.com, K-12techdecisions.com, and worshiptechdecisions.com. Each one of those, depending on what you're looking for, will give you the information you need.
That's wonderful. Thank you. I would concur with with the appreciation that we have that Mark expressed, Jonathan, and we really appreciate you being on the show and all the support you provided, and we do look forward to continuing the partnership together.
As
Mark,
do I.
How can people reach you, Mark, and continue the discussion and comment on your recent blog post about Santa?
You can find us at the TechTalk website. And the address for that, Steve, is TechTalkAV.
TechTalkAV.com.
Thank you. So you can find us there. You can find me at bmasoftwaresolutions.com, or you can follow me and my ever-growing list of 62 followers on Twitter at Mark Lavecchia.
How do you ever keep up?
Well, it's difficult, Steve. But when you've got the kind of followers that I have, it just sets the bar for the kind of relationship you want to have out in the virtual world. And by the time we talk, I could have 65. No kidding.
Wait till this goes live.
Oh well, I'm 68 now, so I'm very excited.
They're going to be lining up in droves.
And how do we find you, Steve?
Well, I also am on Twitter and a follower of Mark Lavecchia. You can find me at Steve Greenblatt. I do a little writing, actually for Commercial Integrator, and have in the past for Corporate Tech Decisions, and enjoy that. Look forward to doing that in the future. And my company is Control Concepts, and we're at controlconcepts.net. So look forward to engaging with everybody. Honestly, we please visit the website, join the newsletter. Express the things that you're looking for us to do, because we're here for you, and we look forward to continuing our future podcasts, and that's the value that we want to provide, and we feel like this is going to be something that is going to really serve the community. So that's it for today. We look forward to speaking with you soon.